Hi, good day everyone. I am Fabi Girl and Pableo. I will be discussing the chapter 1, the background of the study. The Philippines business process or BPO industry has grown considerably since it started in the early 1990s. Right now, more than 1 million Filipinos are gainful employed, one of the country's largest and most dynamic business process outsourcing industry. The culture, business landscape, and people from BPO industry have contributed a great deal to the Philippine economy. This trend became increasingly common as the years progress and technological resources develop. Communication in the Philippines may seem to be easy for many Western corporate professionals from one perspective. Since effective communication is fundamental in the business process outsourcing industry, one palpable reflection of the Western influence amongst Filipino employees in the Filipinos English language proficiency, and indeed it has been considered to be one of the reasons and high demand on English language speaking workforces has been established in the country by Rappler 2016 also. Put it in the other way, language is also seen as a culture which can be understood as voice that inextricable link to be mannered in which individuals experience themselves. B. Statement of the problem and objectives. As illustrated above, there can be an equal sharing of the life experiences within groups, evident in the way people communicate with each other. There is a need of underrepresented groups to learn ways that would allow them to have their voices heard. The dynamics of computer-mediated communication might just also open opportunities for us to identify different strategies in communication that would counter the communicative struggles that render some groups to be muted and would allow them to discover different means to eventually present themselves to others effectively and deliberately.
Several researchers revealed that the unequal sharing of powers within groups should be attributed to differences in situational circumstances or contexts which rendered the non-dominant groups muted. Putting it forward, it was suggested that to fully understand how groups become muted, the intersectionality should also be taken into account. Previous studies highlighted that since each group has its own perception of the world, non-dominant group members or underrepresented group members determine communication strategies as common communicative patterns would emerge within the non-dominant groups. These approaches become consistent with their self-image and nevertheless do not disrupt expectations of the dominant groups. Still, the perceived powerlessness situation has been the case. This is evident in the studies that centered on underrepresented groups, particularly intra-group of women and working mothers who perceive their voices as muted. As how it relates to the current study, there is an assumption that as culture in the workplace is constructed through values and norms, it would take on the power that may constitute to the silencing or muting of the underrepresented groups. The emphasis is on how the power is constructed, thus would offer a lens through which to view the non-dominant group or underrepresented group's culture and struggles in a given setting. This will then suggest how culture is formed by the competitive environment and societal expectations within which the organization operates. Hence, as organizational groups unavoidably fall into a hierarchical relationship, those who are non-dominant and underrepresented become muted. B. Communication strategies of muted groups. Communication strategies of muted groups emerge because of the desire to have equal representation of voices in the society. The most critical element that would present that muting has been occurring is in the demonstration of the self-perceptions of groups highly employing resistance strategies.
Now, according to Lev Kitts, 2012 in a study about the perceived muteness of the intergroup of women to study analyze the impact of the use of relational speech in face-to-face and email communication, and also investigate the workplace situations which made the perception of muted voice and increased. Now, emails were coded as to whether they were instructional, casual, or informational, that the analysis further identified the type of affiliative language. Now, the results of the actual emails were compared with the interview findings, the document relationships or connection of when affiliative language has been utilized. The participants of the study experienced communication struggle when communicating through the email, and most women who have chosen to use communications from their email seem to have reinforced their muted voice. Next is Hokano 1999 stated that in the local context, a study that explored the Filipino management of virtual conversation in an asynchronous online discussion forum found out that the Filipinos exercise politeness strategies in computer-mediated communication. The Filipino participants' predominant use of kinship markers in their online discourse have been seen as a reflection of the Filipino spirit of familialism or magkaanak na pananaw, which connotes the idea of having the tendency to treat other people as members of their own respective families. A switch room Bicolano language to English language has been construed as manifestation of language hybridity brought about the combined forces of globalization and internet technology. Filipino Facebook users stated that they used shortened words when they communicating using information and communications technology because they save space, time of encoding, and because they got used to them and they used acronym were more convenient for them. Previous studies revealed that the self-presentation in social network is idolized by Manago and Graham, Greenfield, and Salinkam 2008. Next is Rosenberg and Egbert 2011, also Walter 2007, lastly Preview and Ibarra 2009. Now, according to Walter 1992, the amount of time spent in the asynchronous communication can be equated to the anticipation of individuals on how might the conversation be processed and the evaluation about the possible consequences of the message. Now, spending more time on online message can construction lead to better expression of the self. These studies share that the same argument with regards to the positive attributes of computer mediated that communication in relation to maintenance of the self. Further, another similar study by O. Civilian 2000 also discussed about the impression, manage, and various meditated networks, now including electronic, mail, and it revealed that individuals' preference for meditated channels can be used as a tool to manage self-relevant information, and also it pursuits of the self-presentational goals that the findings supported the concept that some degree of visual anonymity in the computer mediated communication enhances the individual's self-presentational ability. From here on it provides an idea that the technological affordances of the communication channels can greatly contribute to the desires of any individual to present themselves to and also to others in the best possible way.
A theoretical framework, co-cultural communication theory represents the eclectic approach to communication which is developed by Mark Orby. It draws from various existing conceptual frameworks related to culture, power, and communication. The basic concept associated with the conceptual framework of muted group and standpoint theories paved the way to the development of co-cultural communication theory. or B. 1998. Co-cultural communication theory offers a practical conception framework to identify the examined of communicative experience or underrepresented non-dominant group members and also known as a co-cultural group member, or B. and Roberts 2012. This theory provides insight into the communication strategies of co-cultural group members by exploring how those individuals who are without access to formal societal power communicate with those in privileged position.
These influential factors in return determine the communication orientations that co-cultural group members use to communicate with the dominant group members. Co-cultural communication orientations are the specific attitudes or viewpoints of co-cultural group members concerning their daily interactions. Non-assertive assimilation means that the co-cultural group members adopt restraint when dealing with the dominant group members. The potential communication strategies under this orientation are emphasizing commonalities or focus on similarities rather than differences, developing positive or shows graciousness when communicating, and censoring self or choosing to keep mum amidst insults from dominant members and averting controversy or changing the subject of communication. Non-assertive separation means that the co-cultural group members either avoid or use subtle cues when interacting with the dominant group members. The communication strategies linked to this orientation are avoiding or exerting conscious effort not to interact with dominant group members, and maintaining barriers or imposing psychological and verbal distance from members of the dominant group. Lastly, aggressive separation means that the co-cultural group members engage in verbal attacks and misdeeds to disenfranchise the dominant group. The communication strategies associated to this communication orientation are attacking or intentionally hurting the self-concept of members of the dominant group. It will be the goal of the study to know whether the muted Filipino employees place their foreign colleagues' concerns before their own or the non-assertive, whether they weigh the outcomes for both personal and their foreign colleagues, or it is called assertive, or whether they give importance to themselves first in any given interaction with their counterparts, or the aggressive, and how possibly that the situational context and the field of experience drive the muted Filipino employees to choose these preferred outcomes and communication approaches. And after that is the conceptual model that shows the preferences, the outcomes, strategies, and orientations of the muted Filipino employees.
Chapter 4 Methodology. So this chapter includes the research design, methods, concept, and indicators. Also units of analysis and sampling, which further describe how this will be used in the study. So for the first is research design and method. This study adopts a qualitative descriptive approach to explore how muted Filipino employees adopt communication strategies in computer-mediated communication to optimize self-presentation towards foreign colleagues. The study focuses on their unique narratives and aim to describe how these communication strategies enhance self-presentation. A descriptive analysis will be used to interpret how these strategies reflect the experience of muted Filipino employees interacting with their American and Canadian colleagues. Second is concept and indicators. So the research investigates the factor driving muted Filipino employees to adopt CMC communication strategies. Identifying key factors such as cultural differences, language barrier, and technological affordance will help understand how these strategies contribute to their self-presentation in CMC. The study will examine communicative pattern, viewpoint, and attitude of muted Filipino employees, focusing on how their CMC strategies reflect optimized self-presentation and interactions with foreign colleagues. So the third one is research instrument. An interview guide will be used for in-depth interview structured into three parts. First is demographic information, which contains name, age, gender, position, and company. Second is factor influencing, so communication strategies and how technological tools facilitate effective CMC interaction. So third is communication orientation and self-presentation in CMC interactions. Interview will be recorded by transcribed and key themes and quotes analyzed to identify patterns and insight. So the fourth one is unit of analysis and sampling. So the study targets 30 Filipino employees from BPO companies with at least 1 year of experience interacting with American and Canadian colleagues. In sampling environment, purposeful sampling will ensuring they meet the eligibility criteria and can provide value insight. One is data gathering. So data collection will occur through in-depth interview with 30 informants conducted via referrals and invitations. Informants will be contacted via email or personal invitation, and interview will last 45 to 60 minutes. Audio recording and note-taking will be used, and informants may recommend others who met the criteria. Next is data analysis, which is transcripts from interviews will be analyzed with theme and quotes identified to support the study objective. Framework from the literature review will guide the interpretation of findings, focusing on how muted Filipino employees use communication strategies and CMC to enhance their self-presentation with foreign colleagues. So for the last one is scope and limitation. So this study focuses on muted Filipino employees interacting with American and Canadian colleagues using CMC tools. Only employees with at least 1 year of experience are included, ensuring established interaction dynamics. The findings are limited to CMC setting with BPO companies, excluding other types of communication environments.